There is a saying, whispered by the elders in my village, be careful what you pray for in the dark. Because the dark is listening. Anya got everything she ever prayed for. And that is when her life truly began to fall apart. Picture this, a canvas splashed with genius, seen by no one. A bank account thinner than a shadow at noon. Then, sudden fame, arriving like a stranger at the door. A luxury apartment with windows that showed her the whole city, yet felt like a gilded cage. A presence, in the corner of every room, felt but never seen. And one night, a scream, swallowed whole by the silence. What if your deepest dreams came true, not as a blessing, but as a contract you never signed? A bargain written in choices, not ink. If you feel drawn to stories that peel back the glitter to show the shadow beneath, stay with me. This is a tale of wishes, whispers, and the terrible price of having them answered. Let me take you to where it began. Not in glory, but in dust. Anya. 23. Her soul was a gallery of vibrant, aching beauty, but to the world, she was a ghost. She lived in a single room in Lagos, where the walls were stained with humidity and the dreams of previous tenants. Her art, bold, emotional, textured pieces that told stories of home and heart, leaned against every surface, gathering dust. Rejection emails were her daily bread. Not a good fit. Will keep you on fire. The fire, she imagined, was a bottomless pit. To buy more paints, she sold her mother's old gold earrings. The guilt was a stone in her stomach. She ate rice and salt. She watched peers, with less talent but sharper connections, rise like rockets. The humiliation was a quiet, constant acid drip. At night, she'd stare at the cracked ceiling, the city's neon glow painting sorrowful colors on her face. And one night, with tears carving paths through the dust on her cheeks, she whispered into the stagnant air, I would give anything. Anything for this to change. She didn't know it then, but a door had just creaked open. Something in the darkness had lifted its head. Have you ever felt that ache? That feeling of being talented, yet utterly invisible. Of shouting into a world that feels deaf. If you know that fracture, that breaking point, hit the like button. This story starts in a place where too many hearts reside. The shift did not come with thunder. It came with an email. Subject, exhibition offer. The most prestigious gallery in the city. No application. Just an offer. The curator, they said, had seen her light. Anya's heart was a drum. She thought it a mistake, a cruel joke. But it was real. Then, a buyer. A mysterious patron purchased 5 of her largest pieces. Full price. No haggling. Money appeared in her account like manna from a digital heaven. 3 days later, her landlord, a man who had never smiled at her, knocked. A mistake in the records, he said, avoiding her eyes. You're upgraded. To the penthouse suite. Same rent. It was impossible. It was miraculous. But, have you ever noticed how silence can feel heavy? How a gift with no giver can chill the blood? There were no names on the contracts. Only initials, smudged and unreadable. The gallery director could never quite recall who had recommended Anya. In her stunning new apartment, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, she'd catch her reflection, and sometimes, for a fraction of a second, it wouldn't move with her. It would be still, watching. She had everything she'd begged for. But on the first night in her new, beautiful prison, hugging herself in the vast, cold living room, a truth slithered into her heart. For the first time in her life, Anya was afraid of how easy it all felt. The first request arrived not as a demand, but as a whisper in her mind. A gentle, persuasive thought that felt like her own. Look at the submission portal for the Art Future Prize. Your friend Kemi's file is there. It's so easy, a single click to corrupt it. She has enough support. You need this more. Anya recoiled. Kemi was a rival, yes, but she was also talented. This was not a thought she would have. She fought it. For a day. But then she stood before her expensive easel, in a penthouse light, and looked at Kemi's vibrant social media feed. a bitter seed sprouted. She'd probably do it to me, Anya rationalized, her voice hollow in the empty space. It's just a setback for her. Not the end. And I need this. Her finger clicked. The fire corrupted. Kemi was disqualified on a technicality. Her confused, heartbroken post online was a knife in Anya's conscience. That very evening, a courier delivered a package. Inside was a rare, antique set of artist tools she had admired in a museum catalogue once. There was no note. The exchange was made. A piece of her integrity, for a piece of luxury. The unseen hand had taken its first, tangible pound of flesh. We all face crossroads. A small, dark choice that promises a bright reward. If you believe that true success should never be built on secretly breaking someone else's stairs, tap the like button right now. Let's see how many stand for integrity. Life became a rushing river, and Anya was swept away in its current. Magazine features. Sold out shows. Influencers in her studio. The world loved her, or loved the idea of her. But the whispers became clearer. Now they came as text messages from unknown numbers. Instructions. Specific. Time sensitive. Recommend this incompetent caterer to your rival gallery owner. Let their event fail. Leave this negative review anonymously for the old artist who criticized you. Each request was a small, venomous snake. And with each compliance, a gift followed, a lucrative contract, a celebrity endorsement, a sudden stock tip that paid off. She began to wait for the messages. Her heart would pound with a sick anticipation when her phone buzzed. The gifts were a drug. The compliance was the price. And her art, it became technically flawless, stunningly detailed, and utterly soulless. It looked beautiful in corporate lobbies. It no longer spoke from her heart, because her heart was being slowly buried under layers of gold. Then came the chilling realization, one dawn as she stared at a blank canvas she felt nothing for. The gift didn't follow the request followed the gifts. It was a trap. The luxury was the bait, the compromise was the snare. She was already in the cage, congratulating herself on the view. The request darkened. Leak these private financial documents of the collector who snubbed you. Ruin his reputation. She did it. A man's life unraveled. Place this stolen jewelry in the bag of that rising artist at the gala. She did it. The young woman was led away in tears, her career incinerated. At 3 p.m., call this man and keep him on the phone for exactly 10 minutes. She did. Later, she saw the news. A road accident at 3:08 p.m. The man's wife, distracted while crossing the street. The report called it a tragic coincidence. Anya vomited until her throat was raw. Her mind began to fracture. Sleep was a forgotten country. She saw movement in the mirrors, a shadow hand on her shoulder, a face in the chrome of her kettle that wasn't hers. Her reflection would sometimes smile when she was weeping. Her old friends fell away. There's something empty about you now, Anya, her oldest friend Chidi said, his eyes full of sorrow. It's like you saw the light behind your eyes. He left, and took the last of her past with him. Pause here. Just for a moment. Look at your own hands. How many lines would you cross? Where would your boundary be? Really think about it. Then came the final demand. The message glowed on her phone in the dead of night. Your sister, Neka. She is investigating the coincidences around you. She knows too much. You must let her into your apartment tomorrow. And you must leave the gas stove on. A tragic accident. A grieving, famous sister. The story writes itself. Anya's blood turned to ice. Neka. Her little sister, who had shared beans and bread with her in the tiny room. Who had believed in her before anyone. Her Neka. For the first time since the gifts began, she felt a clear, clean emotion, revulsion. A love so fierce it burned away the fog of addiction. No, she said aloud to the empty, watching room. No. Not her. never. The silence that followed was heavier than any before. It was the silence of a judge passing sentence. The unraveling was swift and merciless. A structural fault was found in her penthouse. She was evicted. The gallery discovered forged documents in her records. Her shows were cancelled. Online, a coordinated smear campaign painted her as a fraud, a plagiarist, a manipulator. Her buyers demanded refunds. It was not an attack of violence. It was an act of erasure. The unseen hand did not punish her with pain, it simply began to delete her from the world she had bought. Homeless, destitute, and haunted, Anya fled to the only place left, her grandmother's village in the countryside. Amongst the wise, weary eyes of the elders, she found the truth. She showed them the strange, fading symbols on the last contract she had. Her grandmother, Mama Ifeoma, went pale. "You have been dancing with Ekwensu Noese, the trickster of choices," she breathed. "It does not hunger for souls in the way the stories say. It feeds on consent. On the slow turning of a good heart toward shadow. Every yes you whispered, even the small one, was a thread it used to weave a net around your spirit. It wanted your will, my child. Not your soul. Your will." The entity fed on moral decay. It grew fat on despair dressed in success. Its currency was the incremental corruption of a beautiful thing. Anya understood then. The gifts were never the reward. They were the weight tied to her ankles, dragging her deeper into the abyss with every grateful breath she took for them. There was one way out, Mama Ifeoma said. Not through battle, but through absolute, voluntary surrender. Of everything it had given. Anya returned to the city. She called a press conference, a shell of the glamorous artist she once seemed. Before the confused journalists, the flashing cameras, she laid herself bare. She confessed to every sabotage, every lie, every framed rival. She showed her bank records, and began transferring every stolen penny to charities in the names of those she'd harmed. She tore up the contracts, burned a symbolic painting of her Hall of Fame. She stood, exposed as a villain, a fool, a monster. And she said, "I choose this truth over that beautiful lie." As the crowd jeered and the news anchors shook their heads, she felt it. A terrible, silent snap. A release of pressure. The whispers stopped. The feeling of being watched evaporated, leaving only the cold, judging eyes of the world. She had nothing. No home, no money, no reputation. But that night, on a cot in a shelter, for the first time in years, Anya slept. A deep, dreamless, peaceful sleep. The silence in her mind was her own. And it was beautiful. In a small, sunlit studio, not unlike her first one, a woman paints. Her hands are stained with honest color. The paintings are not technically perfect. They are raw, emotional, and true. They sell for little, but to those who buy them, they mean everything. Anya is at peace. The road is harder, longer. There are no miracles. Only the slow, satisfying grind of effort meeting grace. Sometimes, she tells this story to young artists who seek quick fame. And she leaves them with this truth, passed down from her grandmother and earned with her own scars. Child, some dreams come true not to bless you, but to test what you are willing to sacrifice to hold them. The greatest wealth is a soul unburdened by the price tag of its own desires. Her story ends here. But its echo asks a question of you. If you were Anya, standing at that first small compromise, at that crossroads between an easy wrong and a hard right, when would you have walked away? After the first gift? The fifth? Or would you have, like her, had to lose everything to remember who you were? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this modern folktale, this story of poetic justice and the unseen cost we pay, resonated with you, if it made you think about the true currency of your dreams, then subscribe. Because the next story waits in the shadows, and it might just hold up a mirror to a part of life you've been afraid to examine. Until then, walk in your own light. And be careful what you whisper for in the dark.